We're about half an hour away from the draw for the All-Ireland quarterfinals. In preparation for that, I'm delighted to say Anthony Moyles with. Anthony, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger. How are you?
Tough weekend for the Kildare supporters out there. We may as well do 2 minutes on this at the top.
10 maybe.
Let Shane have his lap of honour. Big story of the weekend is obviously Galway and Mayo. But I was making the point earlier on that the difference between Division 1 and Division 2 football, it's not obvious always, but it's kind of obvious in that, like, more often than not, Monaghan made the right decisions. And look, you know, this is very wise after the fact, and it's a bit of scoreboard journalism. There's just a slight difference between the Division 1 teams and the Division 2 teams. Normally, you get away with more as a Division 1 team. You know more. You've got a little bit more self-confidence in the last few minutes. Because I actually thought, like, on the balance of play, Kildare could easily have won that game. And if they'd won the game, it wouldn't have been... It was not a smash and grab from that perspective. So if you're trying to build a team who's going to be a competitor, you have to be in Division 1 season in, season out, and it's very hard otherwise.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to decision making, really, and it's at the finer points in the game that those decisions really matter, you know. So it's the thing of that when you're in Division 1 and when you're coming up against the teams that you come up against week in, week out, and you're in those times of, say, 5-minute plays, 6-minute plays, which is 6 minutes left to go, and you're training for that, and you're making the right decisions. You're holding on to the ball for a period of time during that. You're making decoy runs. You're trying to get your shooter onto the ball, or it's a bit more frantic. And as you go down the divisions, the conditioning levels have improved massively over in the country, right? So most teams are conditioned now to a point where they will stick with you. And of course, as you go from 4-3-2-1, it gets better and better and better. So skill levels, yeah, same thing. You know, most fellas can, you know, are adept left, right, can do what they need to do. But it's those small decisions, and especially as the pressure builds. So as the pressure cooker increases, and as that kind of moment it gets it, and there's more jeopardy on the line. That's the new buzzword at the moment. But there's more on the line. There's all of those instances, and you see it right over the weekend. You know, you can pick the situations out. You know, watching the Meath match, Meath cruising, and then a couple of incidents where all they needed to do was reward the runner. You know, just give a simple little hand pass, runner coming off the shoulder, and it's either a goal or it's an easy point, and you put another sword in Antrim, and instead they don't, and Antrim managed to still have breath. Same thing with Kildare. Couple of incidents where they reward the runner. You should just slip the ball, take an easy score, you know, or open up a goal chance. You don't do it, and you might get a point, whereas 3 was really on the line. And it doesn't matter whether, Jared, it's in the first minute or the 75th minute, you know, when those decisions have to be made. So you look at Mayo on the goal, ball comes through, beautiful run by McBreen. Next thing, Aidan O'Shea has only one thing in his mind, which is, I ain't going for this. This is just a simple little 1-2 hand pass back, you know, reward the runner that's in the back of the net. Tierney on the other end comes up. Instead of going round the keeper, you know, I know it's easy to say from here, but he tries to kick it and he blows a straight up reef. So it's just those, it's decision making around, and generally the teams that win are the fellas who are just better. And it's not even it is a skill thing, but it's also a mindset, and it's also being ready for that and doing it, as I say, week in, week out.
And adaptability to pressure. The one caveat to all this, obviously, is Cork, who have now beaten Division 1 talent back-to-back weeks, and I think we should really you know, do them the proper service of analysing that game and their performance and just the quality of it, because maybe this year, actually, when you look at Division 2, it was like full of really good teams. We had essentially 2 Division 1 teams in Derry and Dublin, and now it turns out Cork were a really excellent side as well. So you know, maybe I'm clutching at straws for trying to find a reason for Kildare. But from Cork's perspective, like, this does seem like it's the birth of a team who are going to be a proper championship team. So bear in mind, we're more than likely going to have this for the next 3 years. So you would expect now Cork to be contenders to reach quarterfinals in each of those years on the basis of what we're seeing at the moment. There's a style, there's a pattern of play, there's a rapid athleticism to their counter-attacking, and they certainly have big game mentality, able to stick with Roscommon when it looked like at various patches that they were going to end up being the Division 2 team against the Division 1 team, but to be able to book that is very impressive.
I think Cork over the last number of years, they played an awful lot to suit other people's styles. You know, I think they realised that maybe they didn't have it in the tank with regard to what we were just speaking about there in conditioning. You know, remember a year or two ago they played Kerry in the Munster and they stuck with them for a long time, about 55, 60 minutes, and then Kerry just blew them away in that last 10 or 15 minutes. I think there was a belief in their own mind that they couldn't stick with these teams. And I think now, which is strange, over the course of a year, and by the way, it just doesn't happen in 1 year. It happens there has to be a body of work that comes, but generally it culminates in a match where it comes to a big scalp. And when you take that big scalp, the difference it makes to a dressing room, the difference it makes to belief. The management can tell you as much as they can see it every night. They can see, well, we're hitting it. You can tell the players, you say, listen, you're right on an equal par, but it doesn't matter, because when they cross that white line, it's that little voice in the back of their head saying, you're just not there, you're just not good enough, you know. And then someone like a Clifford scores a point off you and you think, oh, and you retreat back into your shell rather than getting the ball and racing up the pitch and sticking the ball over the bar yourself, which lots of the Cork cornerbacks did and fullback did. I think he scored another 2 or 3 points at the weekend. So that confidence, that comes from, you know, you don't get up there and you look to dish it off to a corner forward. You get up there and you go, no, I can kick this. And that's all the belief, Ger. And it does come from those big scalps, and you can see it. You know, there was lots of people after round 1 and round 2 of the league were kind of saying, where are Cork going? Are Cork possibly looking at relegation? And now, you know, no one would want them, because, by the way, they have all the attributes that you want. Very, very tight and powerful 6 at the back, very capable, loads of pace, and they're nasty. They can give it to you if you want. Massively powerful midfield, very mobile, can take scores. And then you have a forward line. I think, okay, the forward line maybe is 1 to 2 fellas maybe short, but still, if they get Hurley back, if they've Sherlock, Jones as well, they've got some enigma players. They've got some, you know, they've got a lot of power up there as well. You know, they've got momentum now. You know, the old famous momentum, which is behind them. I felt very sorry for Roscommon, I have to say, because I don't think that makes Roscommon a bad team. No. By the way, they were within a hair's breadth of winning it, and possibly could have. Like Daly, I know there's going to be lots of talk about referees, but was it a foul? Was it not a foul?
I'm not sure.
You know,
is it a foul? I don't think you can throw the ball up to yourself.
Like, what's the difference between bouncing it?
Did Aidan O'Shea did he hand pass that through and then because I thought he lost control and then regathered it you know,
it's a very grey area. Like, if you lose control, it's seen as, okay, you've just lost control, but if you throw it to yourself, as in,
then it bounced.
I
know you can't. Anyway, but
I'd like to hear the referee in this one.
It is, but I thought it was a great game, and they do deserve credit for it, because, you know, Roscommon put it back to them. We knew Roscommon wouldn't die. They've been doing it all year. You know, they have been showing what to do. But I also felt Roscommon's, again, their reliance on, well, we're going to choke the game. I thought they could have went for the jugular a bit more, and I think when they went 5 down, they had to come out and play, and they showed that they can play and they can kick scores. Remember, I think if they applied that a little bit more in the first half, I think they would have had enough room. But fair play to Cork, they're there on merit.
And I think to get far, we've talked about this before, you need scorers from the wing back positions, and from, like you mentioned, like Matty Taylor, I think, was man of the match for Cork yesterday, scoring from the back. Tommy Walsh as well. Conor McCarthy had 1-2 for Monaghan yesterday. He had 1-2 against Clare recently as well from wing half back. Like, the thing about Cork as well is, and we'll find out obviously in the draw shortly, but so they can either get Dublin, Derry or Armagh, and we could be sitting here in half an hour's time going Cork against either of those Ulster teams, and they'll fancy a scalp. I'm not saying they can't beat Dublin either, by the way. I think Cork, regardless of which of those 3 teams they get, will think they have a strong chance of getting to a semi-final.
Well, you now go back to a little bit about tradition and mindset, and Dublin would never fear Cork, and I know they say, but it does matter. It does matter. They'll you saw it this year. They'll say to themselves, we were right there. We had that game potentially, and I honestly,
sorry, Cork will never fear Dublin.
Sorry, Cork will never fear Dublin. It is a situation now. Look, I mean, you have it so evenly poised, you know, and I know even, you know, whether it was Monaghan or Kildare, Monaghan as well will come in and say, like, I think there's a few sitting ducks in that last 4. I really do. I think Kerry are sitting ducks. I know. I honestly think I think if you have a good enough plan, I think Kerry are teetering. I really do.
All of a sudden I want Monaghan to draw Kerry.
I just don't. I think you can set up against them.
Did they not fix their problems? And I know you can't tell because it's Louth, and Louth, for whatever reason, against the two big teams, didn't do what they were supposed to do and play the defensive structure that we know they're capable of. So it doesn't make any sense. But did Kerry not just get the memory of being All-Ireland contenders? No,
Louth were beating Dockett at that stage. They were gone. Whatever the Louth lads had put in for those two previous games, which was immense, and they nearly pulled it out of the bag against Mayo. They were done. So in the back of your mind, you're saying yes, but then after 15 or 20 minutes, or 35 or 40 minutes, you just start to go, you know what, I'm feeling a bit sore. I'm a bit tired. It's just been a long year, and you're done. And then Kerry do what they can do to you.
Yeah. Well, do we not then now, on the basis of how well Cork have played, need to go back and revisit how Kerry just took care of business in that first half and the second half was boring because the game is over? Like, is that not something that would give Kerry a bit of confidence?
Again, but it wasn't the same Cork team as what would be sitting there this morning. Like if you're the Cork management team, you're going in there, and the Cork players, there's a completely different vibe, and for all of them, Monaghan will feel the same. Monaghan will revisit that and say, right, what can we do that we didn't do well, but we're still here, and we're onto it again. Mayo, absolutely full of pomp after the weekend, full of confidence. Mad for action. And Tyrone, by the way, because people are kind of we're forgetting about Tyrone, and people will kind of go, Donegal with the troubles. And I said to myself, I hadn't watched the Tyrone thing, so I said I'll just watch the highlights. But I actually watched the full game last night because I was like, in the first 4 minutes, I was like, holy gee! I said, I haven't seen this from Tyrone since the All-Ireland. They absolutely railroaded Donegal. They wouldn't let them out of their own half. They were so physical. They were unbelievably skillful. It was actually like watching the Canavan lads is like you're watching plus 16 on the fast forward. It's just they're just so fast. They're running around everywhere. It's just like, what am I doing? Like it is
dealt with the wind as well. Probably better. Dealt with the wind.
And that Donegal, by the way, did not lie down. Donegal put in a performance. They had all their big lads back. Aidan
O'Rourke has stepped down, by the way. The job that he did is, quietly one of the great managerial shepherding of a chaos and rescuing. I think he's certainly done his reputation no end of good. Like, if you were a county anywhere close to where he lives, you'd be ringing him up and saying, do you want to join the backroom team? If you're a manager. And he said afterwards that it's a full-time job, and it didn't feel like maybe the immediate aftermath of that Donegal job in particular, he's not too mad keen, but I'd be looking to get him involved. He seems to know what he's doing.
He's a very smart guy. He was a great player on the pitch. He was a smart player on the pitch. He knew where to be. He pulled strings for Armagh within a very, very talented team, and a lot of other fellas got a lot of credits, whereas he was he was happy to stay in the background, but actually be a guy that if you spoke to them would say, he's the man, by the way. He's the man who makes us tick. So I think also he tipped the hat to Paddy Carr. What's going on up there was out of their control, shall we say. But to be able to bring those fellas back to put in the performance that they have put in over the last while has been brilliant.
I saw someone posting a stat yesterday on Twitter saying, like, was it 70-something% of teams that had the rest week, as in the Kerrys of this world for this weekend got through and end up winning the game. But I'm wondering, like, would you prefer to be in the position of the teams with that extra week break, or are you looking at going momentum, a nice win under your belt this week?
Not the NFL. Was that not the stat?
Could have been. Yeah, possibly it was. Yeah. But I guess it stands to reason for sport generally. Like, you get the week's break, it helps, but then maybe momentum is the thing you want.
I think Kerry, to go back to that, I know we're jumping around here a bit, but there's just so much going on. I think Kerry, like, it was weird yesterday when I look at Galway, right, and I see Comer and Walsh, the two biggest players that they have, and how, obviously an injury and just a serious lack of form. If you roll it back, Comer missed a massive amount of, obviously, true injury. And I honestly think, people talk about pre-season and, you can get fit. I think you can get fit over a period of time for one game. But it's very difficult when you've missed a body of work, okay, to come back for a grueling bum, right? That takes, because the body starts to go, where is the stuff that you did? And it literally is. It goes back to what you did in December and January. It's that stuff of having it in the tank. he didn't have it, and he has broken down, shall we say. Walsh, with Kilmacud's exploits, he came back late, all those different things, because he looks a pale shadow of himself. You know, if you even watch him outside of his shooting, just watch him in general play, didn't really want to get involved.
You can see the movement is kind of a similar shape, but it's not at the same pace or explosiveness.
Correct. It's not at the same. He looks like he doesn't look as conditioned as he was in previous years. He looks like he is just settled back. And I don't know if it's that move. I don't know if it's travelling up and down. Maybe he's not. You know, it's a tricky situation, and it culminated in yesterday.
Terribly surprised if Crokes went deep again, would you? So
correct. You know, so it's a hard thing for him, and I honestly think that decision. You know, even though maybe I sat a little bit on the fence because, look, I moved clubs plenty of times, but that decision seemed like a bit of a seminal moment for him, because not only was he making a decision of moving club, but he was now saying to the county team, you know, and it's of course it's around his work, right? And it's a difficult thing to do. But when you have that gap, you're not with the squad. You're not doing as much stuff as they are doing. You're not getting the stuff in the tank that we spoke about, and you become a little bit of an outsider. You just do, you know, and it's a hard thing for him, and you could kind of see it yesterday, because it was, you know, his performance yesterday was way below par.
So, was that Galway's window? Is Galway's window shut?
I think it possibly. Look, they still have enough talent. I don't think they're nasty enough. I know that's been thrown at Galway a lot. And what does that mean? I don't mean that you're boxing the head off, but what I mean is that you have enough leaders and fellas who are able to stand up. Conroy did it yesterday. Keeley did it yesterday.
It means you're a flat track bully when you've got the win behind you. You have an 8-point lead instead of a 5-point lead.
Yeah, it is
ruthlessness about going for the goal chances to kill the opposition, even though.
Correct. You know, and when I look at the teams left, the first thing I would look at is well, nastiness, ruthlessness. Who's going to do it? Who's going to put it up to you from 2 to 15? Who's going to give you to you all day long? And we talk about Tyrone. Tyrone are very much definitely back. They have regained that.
Yeah.
And they have it, right?
I'd like to see Tyrone against Dublin in the next round. That would be...
that'd be a series. Because again, have Dublin got it? There's still question marks over Dublin. I think they still have the players to do it. But again, so when you look at the guys, I think it was imperative to get that rest week. And I think it's made a big help for them, potentially, if they use it well. Because what you don't do is you don't run the dog out of them. You don't, like, you need to give these guys, you need to say, right, well, we're actually going to use this in a very efficient manner. Dublin needed it, I think. So the likes of James McCarthy and these guys would have been absolutely begging for that kind of a week to refresh. Yeah. And I think Kerry really needed it. Derry, not so much. Derry, I think, are one of those momentum type teams. They want to keep going. They want to keep steamrolling whoever's in front of them. When they sit back, it might be, we're thinking about this for a bit too long. I think Armagh needed it. Yeah. Right? Definitely. So, but again, it's that freshness versus this energy. That's the big question coming into this weekend.
I could see Derry or Armagh toppling either Dublin or Kerry in a big game at this stage. Of the teams who've come through yesterday, can you see any of those causing obviously Mayo. Can Mayo beat at Dublin or Kerry?
I think they can. I think Mayo, that felt like a 1-point hammering yesterday for me. You know, I think Mayo for some reason had literally the foot in the throat, and they kind of went, we'll just rest it there for a while and then eventually we'll apply it. Like, they really they own the second half, and I thought they were, Galway did rise a bit, but I think Mayo kind of retreated a little bit and said, right, we'll bring you on to us and then we'll just kick a couple of scores, and they tried to manage the last few minutes. I still don't think he has found his, again, like, they're a smart management team, so what they're trying to do is they're trying to do horses for courses, but I think he probably want to give a few lads a few wake-up calls post the last game, because I didn't really understand. I know O'Hara was sick, but I was kind of going, Matty Ruan, I think he is needed in there, because definitely when you get into Croke Park you need that speed and kind of agility and all of those different things you should get from your half-back and midfield, and I think it's imperative that he gets Ruan back into that sector.
Is the Mayo kickouts a concern. Like, you looked at it even yesterday, I think it was 4 out of their own 13 kickouts they won, whereas Galway were winning basically all of their own kickouts, albeit some of them were taken short. But Mayo, you need to retain possession from your kickouts, and if you're not doing that against Dublin or Kerry, you're not going to win the game.
No, you're going to be murdered, and that's why they had to bring obviously O'Shea out in that first half, and they put him out there when they were facing into the breeze, and then what that did, of course, is it robbed them of that focal point up front where they were just able to dish the ball off left and right. And I thought O'Donoghue had a quite enough game considering.
Sorry, they were first half stats as well, so obviously they're against the wind is a factor, but still you need to have plans.
It is. You need to have plan, but when you're playing against a big breeze and a squeeze, it's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult because, if you give a floating kick out, it just kind of hangs in the air and it can be destroyed. And if everyone's pressing up, you have to just go long. And then, you're literally just putting it out there, 50-50. And you're just hoping for the best, yeah.
What about the standard refereeing at the weekend? Obviously, it came up for conversation in the aftermath. I hate giving out referees, but
and so do I, because we'll throw out the old stuff. It is a difficult job, all that thing. But I'd say the main concern, Ger, for managers and for players is the fact that, never mind the standard, but the way games are being refereed between different games is so different. So over the weekend, the Roscommon game I thought was refereed really well, and there was a physicality that was let happen during the game, which it is a physical game,
The only cards came in stoppage time at the end, and I actually thought the red card was a bit ridiculous. It was definitely look, there's a raised hand, but there's definitely oh my God, you've touched me in the face after I've pushed you. I find that sickening, but anyway.
Yeah, but yes, but I think what was very evident was, I think the referees, to be fair to them, have tried to pick up on the old hand over the shoulder and I grab you and I go down. They've picked up a lot of the feigning of stuff. They picked up a lot of fellas going down with their head, pretending that they're, especially after stuff like goals and things like that, trying to buy time, kill momentum. So they are picking up, but the difference is so the Kildare game, you're kind of going, Jesus, everything was being blown, and then some things where you kind of go, how is that not a free?
But those decisions in that game were different because they were like, and I agree, I don't like to criticise referees. I tweeted during the game saying I think the officiating in that game was atrocious, but that's nothing personal against the referee. He just had a terrible day. But I also think Glenn Ryan's comments afterwards don't help when he's saying, what's he saying? I was chatting during the week to someone, and this man is out of his depth, and he proved tonight he was out of his depth. And then he's talking about David Goff being on the sideline, and an official of that experience maybe should be refereeing instead. And he was saying things like Goff was agreeing with me during the game that some of the decisions were wrong. And I had sympathy for Glenn Ryan because a lot of decisions against both teams were horrific.
Well, look, I think regardless of referees, what you need to try to do is you need to try to make the referees job easier. So in these games, and we go back to our very, very, very first point about conditioning and about how teams are equalising out over the last number of years, right? So you look at all the games, I don't know the exact stats on it, but even this week, last week, whatever it is, most games are being won by a point or two. So when a point or two comes to a situation where you get a free, which is like the one that's standing out to me in the Kildare game is can't remember who makes him one. It might have been Carl O'Connell, who was again brilliant. Yeah. But Flynn, who was brilliant, hits him with his chest. Remember that one? And he bounces him onto the ground, and they get the ball back, and it was a free. And like that's the type of thing where you're Glenn Ryan's lying in bed last night, and he's just going, that's an easy score. That's a tap over score. And it's something that comes back against you. And some fellas say, it evens out. It doesn't often even out.
No, to be fair, Ryan O'Toole was stripped the ball from a Kildare player as well and had a free given it for a perfectly good tackle. It was a tap over free again. But I do take your point.
Yeah, but it's just but where I go back to trying to help them out. So the timekeeping thing. Like, and I heard what you said earlier on, and you were right. There was 40 or 50 odd seconds because they were taking someone off and then they were putting Wiley on. But what happens is people expect at 74 minutes, people expect the whistle just to be blown. And then it goes on to 74 and a half, 75, 76. And you're kind of going, whereas they just need to bring in a hooter of sorts or whatever it is. Just say, right, it's going to this time, and bang, that's it. It just stops all that. It takes it out of the referee. The referee should not have discretion at that time of the game. because there's just too much on the line. And all the players know, right, literally it's 20 seconds to count down or whatever it is. Because, just make it easier for the fella.
Yeah, because it looked like they weren't going to get a shot off in time.
Yeah.
And then they didn't. And then it's like, oh no, actually they had extra time, which they didn't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
which is a slightly fluky element of
Fluky.
of all that.
Bitter Kildare man.
Totally fluky.
Yeah. Flippy.
Well, wearing the hattie or not.
The Meath Antrim game ended up being fairly dramatic in the end. Meath made hard work of it.
Yeah, they were cruising. Andy Mack has done, I think, a fantastic job up there, and Antrim are playing nice brand of football, and they've got some really good players. Again, I think it's just decision making when the pressure comes on, and you see it, and you saw it on both teams. But very, very equal in the first half. As a matter of fact, very, very equal game. Second half, Meath in that kind of a 10-15 minute period in the start of the second half kind of stretched it out, got a goal and kind of pushed ahead. But then Antrim, to be fair, were 8 points down, came right back into it, and could have caught them, had chances at the end. They had a great goal chance where there was I think it was like a 4-on-2 or a 4-on-3, and I can't remember the player, but he just soloed it up and just miscontrolled it instead of quickly passing it through the hands. So look, Meath will be happy, they'll be disappointed, but O'Rourke can kind of go in and say, right, here's stuff we need to work on for the next day. And they're going to come up against Down, who obviously gave Laois a bit of a tank.
Jordan Morris, brilliant.
Yeah, like Morris has been moving well. I think what they're doing is they're trying to bring pace and a little bit of kind of that whippy kind of corner forwards into place with Lynch as well in the other corner. They're not lacking in confidence, those lads, and when they get on top of you, they will do it. So Antrim, there was plenty of space in front of that full forward line. Will they be favoured the same amount of space? But of course it'll be Croke Park, so it does make a difference. Matthew Costello has done really, really well, and did really, really well again, I think, over the weekend. Played brilliant. And there's a young lad, Conor Gray, who's in midfield for me. He came from the under-20s. He's only 19 or so, and I thought he had a powerful game as well. So they're coming. He's given a lot of debutants and a lot of young lads their games. And it's just a work in progress, really.
First draws out.
Kerry versus Tyrone.
Yeah, wow.
Sitting Ducks.
Bye, Kerry.
You think so?
Yeah.
All right, wow. The Canavans.
You think that's the end?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and so 2 of these are Saturday and 2 of these are Sunday.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
Kerry, Tyrone.
Yeah.
You're excited?
Yes.
Well, Kerry could only get Monaghan or
if
Tyrone.
I was Tyrone, I'd be excited.
So that's the first one. The delay always delayed.
Yeah,
it's not a comment on anything. So if it's Kerry Tyrone, it's going to be Dublin Mayo, is it? No, Armagh.
Well, Monaghan can now get Armagh or Dublin. Armagh or Dublin, because we obviously can't get Kerry anymore, and we can't get Derry. So yeah,
Armagh versus Monaghan.
It is.
Is it confirmed?
Yeah. Coming through now.
Armagh Monaghan, would have probably. Yeah.
Well, obviously it's the draw.
There's
Monaghan
definitely
wanted.
the old hot ball, cold ball going on here.
Is it the draw?
Well, the alternative was Dublin or Kerry. So yeah, for sure.
Is it? Okay.
Well, I think so. I think it's a game that both Monaghan and Armagh will both think they can win and relish.
So can Dublin Mayo meet?
It's Derry versus Mayo or Mayo versus Dublin, and we'll know that in a moment.
That's Dublin versus Mayo.
Derry versus Cork, it's Dublin Mayo. Yeah, Derry Cork. So Derry will be happy. The Dubs versus Mayo in the quarterfinals. Is that what they wanted? Mayo are going to beat Galway, Kerry and Dublin in the same year in the championship and not win the All Ireland. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, you can just see it.
Dublin Mayo, Kerry Tyrone, Derry Cork and Monaghan Armagh.
That's the draw. Kerry versus Tyrone, Armagh versus Monaghan, Derry versus Cork and Mayo versus Dublin. Games to be played in double headers over the next weekend.
Great games. They're fantastic games. Yeah. But the championships, the standard, it's dead. It's terrible.
The game is finished.
The game's dead. Yeah. We need about 55 different rule changes to get her exciting.
Yeah. Before we go, I know you wanted to pay testimony to one of your former teammates, Dennis Keeley, who passed away.
Yeah. Sad news. Very sad news. Over the weekend, Dennis passed away on Saturday evening. Just a brilliant fella, a great guy, a great teammate. Like, for anyone that doesn't know, the Keeleys were the backbone of, you know, a Dunshaughlin team that won 3 championships, senior championships in a row, and won a Leinster, and were very unlucky not to win the All-Ireland back in the early 2000s. We had plenty of battles with them, and I was playing with Blackhall Gales, and they were the standard bearers, really, you know. And I always felt myself that if you wanted to beat Dunshaughlin, you had to either at least equally match the Keeleys, because they were everything that was good in football, you know, dedicated, committed, like no matter when or how, they would just give everything. Every training session, you know, they were just as I said, the standard bearers for everything, massively committed and passionate, and it's you know, news came through from, you know, different fellas that obviously that we've played together and played on Meath teams with and played against Dennis, and it's just very, very sad. You know, he leaves behind obviously a wife and 3 small young lads, and the Keeley family have suffered this year and last year. Dennis's sister Maria passed away last December, so it's very, very hard on them, and yeah, just, you know, a good guy, and you know, taken way too early, unfortunately.
Right. We send our condolences to the Keeley family as well. Good stuff, Anthony. Thanks for joining us today.